Oh, hey there, so you're planning this rope climbing trip and you already know that you're probably not gonna do any hard moves at all, so it would be cool to bring some kind of training tool with you to, kind of throw in a hangboard session here and there to keep the finger strength on point. But then you browse all these internet pages and then you ask yourself, why does a piece of wood cost so much money? So in this video I'm gonna show you how to build a portable hangboard for basically, I don't know, $10 or something, or probably even $5. For me, this build costs $0 because it's basically made out of leftover materials from the van build. And it's also additionally very, very easy to do. So yeah, I think it's time to turn my living room into a workshop again. We're gonna start with showing off what we actually need to build this thing. Alright, so first of all, we've got this big piece of wood here. We have 97mm by 28mm in width, and this is actually spruce, so that should give enough stability to make a nice ground plate actually for the hangboard. And then we've got two more pieces of wood, guess what? And the one is, I think, 27 by 27 square, this one here. And this is gonna be the, so to say, the better hold on there for warming up and maybe for one-armed hangs and stuff like that. And then we've got this piece here, which is 27 by 18mm. So as you can see, this is considerably thinner, and this is gonna be the worse hold, the training edge, so to say. And we also gonna need some saw, of course, like this thing here. This is very precise. It's actually for arborists, for cutting down branches and even cutting down trees and stuff like that, but this is actually a really precise saw for cutting, actually for woodworking in general, in my opinion. And we've got, of course, these two drill bits here, one small one, one big one. Actually, only the big one matters really, because this is gonna make the holes to put the cordage through later on. And then we've also got these screws, of course. We've got long ones and short ones. These are gonna help to reinforce the holes onto the ground plate. A ruler and a pen is, of course, always useful to draw out your stuff. And then really important, we've got a rasp and a file here. When you make a hangboard, you will notice quite quickly that most of the work is actually filing off edges of your pieces, okay, so that you have a comfortable grip later on. So this is actually what we're gonna use most of the time. And then, of course, something to drill the holes with and drive the screws in. And some wood glue would be nice as well. And of course, very important, some pieces of sandpaper. All right, let's get started. Let's get it done. First of all, we're gonna mark out our stuff. Now, for all the amateur hangboard builders out there, a hangboard, especially a portable hangboard, doesn't really need to be wider than your shoulder width. So my shoulders are about 50 to 60 centimeters wide, I don't know exactly, to be honest, and the person this is for has even narrower shoulders, so I guess 52 centimeters or something are gonna be sufficient. 52 centimeters of grip wideness, so to say. So let's mark that out. So here's a tip, mark everything out, but do not yet cut it, because it's actually a lot easier to work with bigger pieces. We don't need to be too exact here on these rungs. We only need a rough orientation to which point we actually have to file down the faces, because we don't want to do too much useless filing, because it's actually pretty exhausting and pretty annoying. Alright, so things are marked out, and yeah, let's move on to the next step. Now the hard work actually starts. We have to file off quite a lot of stuff from our three wood pieces, the ground plate and the two hold pieces. So I'd say I'm just gonna do the job now, make a bit of slow-mo footage and awesome looking stuff like that, to make it a little bit more cinematic here. And then afterwards I'm gonna show you what I did exactly and why I did it. Alright, so now comes the training edge, and since it's that one that we're gonna use the most frequently, it's really important to not mess that up. That's why I'm making myself a rough mark for the rounding here. Oh yeah, that was pro-like. So that I get an equal rounding, an even rounding throughout the whole edge. As you can see, the rounding of this thing is not too big. 5 millimeters in radius or something. For the finishing with the sandpaper, do not use a too fine sandpaper here. If you're using a very fine sandpaper, the wood is gonna be very polished in the end and it's gonna be very slippery to hold on. And if you're using a little bit of a more rough sandpaper, then you're gonna have this little tiny little rills of grip, you know, on your wood. And that's actually pretty comfortable to hangboard on. Maybe I should tell you also what I'm actually using. This is a 60, as you can see. Alright, so let's take a look at what we've got so far. We've got a ground piece which is rounded up here. This is gonna be the top of the hangboard. As you can see, I marked these with an arrow on the side. And this is basically going to be some kind of warm-up jog or whatnot, you know, to make some pull-ups with and stuff like that. So onto this thing we have the bigger hold, you know, the kind of still warm-up hold but already kind of an edge style hold, which is going to take place on the middle of the hangboard actually. And then we've got our little rounded training edge with a really nice and smooth edge, finished with some rougher sandpaper so that we have a little bit more grip on it. And this is going to take place on the lower end of the actual hangboard. It's very tempting to actually put the bigger one at the lower end and the medium, the small size edge in the middle. But then you will run into the problem that when training, you will not have quite some good access to this training edge because the lower edge is sticking out a lot more than the actual training edge, okay? So that's why I go with training edge on the lower end and the bigger edge on the medium of the hangboard, and then you don't have this problem. When you want to take the bigger edge, then you don't run into conflict with the lower one because it's smaller, and when you want to go on the lower edge, on the training edge, then there is no any obstacles at all, you know, below that. And on top, of course, we've got the jug, and the jug is actually going to be accessible from the other side of the hangboard, you know, because from here, you know, it's quite unpractical because the edges are gonna stick out. So these are the thoughts that run into the edge placement on the actual ground plate. The next steps are gonna be marking out where the rungs on the ground plate actually will take place, and then I'm gonna drill 2 additional holes here into this bigger edge hold here, and I'm gonna explain later why actually. And then we can already start attaching the rungs to the ground plate. So let's get it done. Alright, so make sure that all your surfaces are dust free. You don't really need to overdo it because we're gonna reinforce that with the screws later anyway. So this is actually only gonna hold our wood in place while we drive the screws in, basically. If you'd be a pro, you'd now have some clamps with you, and you would clamp that down pretty tightly so that it's holding its position. I don't have any clamps now, unfortunately. So we're gonna hope for the best. So we're gonna leave this for a while now, let's say 10 minutes or so, until the glue is kind of semi-dry, and then we're gonna drive in our screws to reinforce that stuff. 10 minutes later, the glue should be semi-dry now, and I've got my screws here. One thing you should consider is that when you have screws that are much thicker than this, you should calculate in the possibility that you're gonna split the wood when you drive them in without pre-drilling. So in this case, you wanna pre-drill your holes actually. Wonderful. Alright guys, believe it or not, but our little portable hangboard is actually almost finished. The next step is to make as clean as possible cut at the 52 centimeter mark here, including all the holes, all the ground plate and stuff like that. So yeah, we want to achieve a clean cut. That's why we're gonna use our pro saw here. Time to drill some holes again. If you can, use a drill press for these holes because they should actually be as straight as possible. And Alright, there it is, our wonderful portable hangboard. So let me show you its features. First of all, got a little kitchen scale here, so we can check the weight of this thing. It's pretty much exactly 1 kilogram, 1.03 kilograms. And you might have asked yourself, what is the purpose of all these different holes that we drilled through this thing? Now, let me show you here. This is basically how you can adjust the difficulty of your hangs. I mean, you've got two hole sizes here, the more or less bigger one with 28 millimeters with the rounding, and then we've got down here the 18 millimeters again with the rounding, and then we've got up here a jug which can be operated from behind as a jug, you know, just like that. But all these hole types can be then run, so to say, under 4 different difficulty modes. So I'm gonna start here by showing you the most difficult mode, so to say, and this is when we use this hole here basically. You know, you can adjust the difficulty of this thing by running your cordage through different holes. If you're gonna run it through like that, and then gonna mount the hangboard somewhere, as you can see, it's gonna hang very much like this, okay? It's gonna hang very slopey, so to say. It's gonna make the holes a lot slopier, and you can go on the upper hole as well as on the lower hole. You might have asked yourself, why do I not simply go through this hole here? When I would do that, it would achieve basically just the same effect, but this cordage here would block the upper hole, so to say, and you wouldn't be able to use the upper hole as well. So in this mode, you can actually use the upper hole as well, and it's gonna be pretty difficult, as you can see. So now the second mode of difficulty is actually when you run your cordage through this hole in this direction, so that it loops on the back side of the hangboard. As you can see, when you mount your hangboard now, it's gonna hang a little bit like that, you know, and it's gonna, if you hang on it, it's still gonna tilt a little bit, but not as much as before. And especially on the upper hole, it's gonna tilt a bit more because the upper hole is going a little bit more out of the plane of the actual hangboard, as you can see. Now, if you want to make your hangs even easier, you do just the same thing, but this time you're going through this hole here and the hole that we've drilled in the beginning through our medium, or through our big edge here actually, if you remember still. So that's gonna make it a little bit easier again, as you can see, because the distance between the cordage and the plate of the ground plate actually of the hangboard is increased, which tilts the hangboard kind of even more into a positive direction, as you can see. And for the easiest mode, you simply have to skip this hole here and go directly through the bottom hole. So as you can see, when you mount the hangboard in this mode, the cordage is gonna run even more with even more distance from the ground pad, so it's actually gonna stay really positive in this direction. So yeah, these are the 4 different difficulty modes under which these 2 edges can be operated by running the cordage differently through these holes that we've